Did you get here last night? Yeah. Everything fine?
If you have cell phones, please make sure that they're off and put away, please. Circuit Court in Fort Marion County is now in session. The Honorable Judge Timothy McCourt is presiding.
Good morning, y'all. Can be seated.
Please be seated and come to order.
We're here in 2024 CF 4124, State of Florida versus Leslie Boileau. Can I have counsel for the parties identify themselves for the record?
Rich Buxton for the state, Tucker O'Neill for the state.
Anthony Taddy for Mr. Boileau.
Mr. Boileau's here, he's seated at council table. So we're here for sentencing today. At the outset, I want to go over some housekeeping matters. I filed a notice that we received the pre-sentence investigation on October 28th. State, you received a copy?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense?
We have
Okay, are there any corrections that need to be made?
not corrections, but I have objections.
Okay, that was my next question. So, all right, let me pull that up here. Okay, Mr. Taddy?
Well, may we approach the bench, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. I've also, we'll come back to the PSI in a second. I've also received, Mr. Taddy, you filed on November 4th, 2025, letters written on behalf of your client. Do you want me to move those into evidence and have me consider them here today?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, all right. State any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, they'll be considered in evidence. I also saw that you filed a copy of his personnel file from the sheriff's office. His training records were in evidence during the trial. The personnel file, would you like me to consider that as well today?
Yes, sir. Specifically, and I gave the public records request I made along with the records I received. I asked for all of his performance evaluations. I didn't designate months or years or
Yes, sir.
anything. So that is his entire file regarding his performance evaluation.
Yes, sir. Okay. State any objection?
Can I just review it real quick, Your Honor? I did not see that.
Okay. They were sent yesterday.
In the email?
I don't know, my assistant forwarded them to me.
They should have gone in the email.
Hold on 1 second.
They're docketed, docket entry 149, notice of filing copies of employment performance evaluations.
Here, I've got.
Okay, I see it. No objection.
Okay. I will be considered in evidence, and I will consider them. All right. So I need to take up, Mr. Taddy filed a motion to exclude evidence of prior bad acts by the defense. So November 12th, which was night before last, just before 8 o'clock, the state filed letters written by Ms. Wright's family members. Then November 13th, state filed an amended version of these letters. I received them by email, and Mr. Taddy was copied on both emails. And apparently, so that to make sure I understand it, the amended filing corrects a singular change, that initially somebody referred to him as a monster, they now refer to him as a person.
Correct, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Taddy's filed a motion to preclude the court from considering the part of the statements that Mr. Boileau had emotionally abused her or previously physically abused her on one occasion, and asks the court also to preclude from consideration reference to some incident where Mr. Boileau discharged a firearm from a vehicle in a wooded area. And the argument is that there was no Williams Rule notice filed and that the evidence is being introduced solely to prove bad character or propensity. Is that a fair summary of the argument?
It is.
Okay. State, are these not references to uncharged criminal conduct?
They are, Your Honor.
Okay. And would you agree that uncharged conduct is not a proper factor for a court to consider in sentencing?
Your Honor, I would agree generally it is. However, the state's position is I think there's a little bit of a opening of the door because defense has filed a motion for downward departure under the guise of unsophisticated, isolated. I don't believe that the references to the abuse would be relevant or related. However, I think the prior issue with the firearm that the family member observed could be considered by the court.
There's a case I'd refer you to, it's Wyrick versus State, 370 Southern 3rd 1000, Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal from 2023. That case deals with reliance by a court to some degree in consideration of uncharged criminal conduct as rebuttal to downward departure grounds. That's not the express holding, but it would appear to me to be an impermissible sentencing consideration
Yes, Your Honor.
regardless. I understand your argument, but we're discharging a firearm into a wooded area, and what happened in this case seems to me to be, to use that overworked metaphor, apples and oranges.
Yes, Your Honor.
Seem quite different. Let me know if you still want to argue that and have me consider it, or?
No, Your Honor, that's fine.
All right, well then, with that being said, I will not consider in sentencing today any allegation as written in a diary about physical or emotional abuse, nor will I consider that on some occasion, Mr. Boileau is alleged to have discharged a firearm from a vehicle into a wooded area. All right, very good. All right, so I also received, in addition to the things Mr. Taddy submitted, I also received written statements by I think 4 or 5 people from the state that I would consider these to be victim impact statements.
Yes, Your Honor.
These are not sworn to, okay? And that there's a case from the First District Court of Appeals, Patterson v. State, 994 Southern 2nd 428, decided in 2008 that held that victim impact statements must be under oath to be considered by the court. Admittedly, there is a contrary opinion from the Second District Court of Appeal, Dickey v. State, 216 Southern 2nd 35, decided in 2017 that reached a different conclusion. The Fourth District Court of Appeal in 2019, Taylor v. State, 264 Southern 3rd 1135, recognized the split, did not weigh in on the issue, and they simply sidestepped it and found that it wasn't fundamental error, even if it was error. The Supreme Court has not resolved it, and I'm unaware of any Fifth DCA case that expressly weighs in on the issue. There's one case, State v. Hollinger, 253 Southern 3rd 1207, decided in 2018. In that case, there was an unsworn victim impact statement submitted to the court, but its author testified at sentencing and was subject to cross-examination. So, I mean, this is not really a confrontation issue at this point, but that decision did note the Second DCA's decision in Dickey in a footnote, and parenthetically noted Dickey's holding that the trial court could properly consider unsworn victim impact statement fashioning a sentence. So with that being said, consideration of unsworn victim impact statements, whether they may be permissibly considered by a sentencing court, is not well settled at this point. And obviously all of that predates Marcy's Law being enacted, and that's been noted by the First DCA in Clackley v. State, CLAKLEY 416 Southern 3rd 444 from 2025, where they also declined to address the issue of whether Marcy's Law affected the holding in Pattinson. So with that being said, are the folks who wrote those letters intending to speak today?
No, Your Honor. My understanding was speaking to them is based off of different reasons. They weren't comfortable speaking in front of the court. They would rather have their thoughts collected and written down for the court to consider ahead of time. So that was the intention or the desire from them.
All right, well, it's certainly not fundamental error for me to consider those. I think that's clear. So with that being said, Mr. Taddy, do you have any objection to my considering the unsworn victim impact statements that were submitted by the state with an understanding that the parts that reference the uncharged criminal conduct, those portions will simply be excised for my consideration?
With that caveat, no, I do not have an objection to the court considering unsworn written statements from the members of Ms. Wright's family.
Okay. Then they will be considered for that for which they are relevant. So, all right. With that being said, Mr. Taddy, you filed a motion for downward departure. The way I think I'd like to do this today is to allow the state to present any just general victim impact statement evidence.
Okay.
After that, Mr. Taddy, you present whatever evidence you need to present on behalf of your client, mitigating or in support of
Yes.
your motion, and
We
go from there.
and forgive me, we began the hearing with the court inquiring of my objection with regard to the pre-sentence investigation.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to let that pass without
Very well.
addressing it. My concern with the PSI is the probation officer both repeats information the court has now determined to be inadmissible at sentencing and appears to rely on that information in coming up with a recommendation. I would move that the court ban from its consideration those statements in the pre-sentence investigation, which are consistent with the statements in the letters that the court's already said you won't consider. And frankly, I would ask the court to disregard the probation officer's sentencing recommendation because it's based on improper considerations.
State, any response?
Your Honor, based off the prior ruling, no objection.
I think that's fair, and I understand Department of Corrections is required to make a sentencing recommendation. Well, they typically do. I often don't give that a whole lot of weight simply because they are not privy to the facts of the case in the way that I have been. So I will disregard their sentencing recommendation entirely, as well as any reference to uncharged criminal conduct that appears in the PSI. But aside from that, biographical information and the like for Mr. Boileau is all correct, no corrections need to be made?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, very well. All right, State, do you have any witnesses you wish to call?
Yes, Your Honor, the first one state would call is William Rubble.
William
Rubble.
Rubble, come on up. Right this way, sir.
Sir. One more, have you raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can put your hand down, sir. Tell me your name and how you spell it.
William Rubble, Ruble.
Okay. State, did you want to ask him questions or just allow him to speak?
Your Honor, I was just going to let him speak. My understanding is he has a prepared statement that he wanted to read to the court.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Your Honor, I have known the Wright family my entire life. Karen Wright was one of my mother's first friends after moving to Florida in the mid-1980s. I remember when Karen and John adopted Julia, Polina, and Greg from Russia, and I often babysat their children as we grew up together. Over the past 3.5 decades, I've attended holidays, birthdays, graduations, and countless other gatherings at their home. It's nearly impossible to leave their company in anything but a better mood than when you arrived. They are, without question, one of the most loving and joyful families I've ever known. I consider Karen and John to be like an aunt and uncle, and their children closer than many of my actual cousins. Polina was full of energy, kindness, and promise. She was a joy to be around, a devoted daughter, loving sister, and a wonderful aunt. Her presence lit up every life she touched. The court has heard from many people who loved her, or will. But I would like to speak specifically to the effect her loss has had on this family. Quite frankly, the only word that fits is shattered. Those of us who have spent time working in the criminal justice system often see tragedy up close, but this family has not. To watch the pain they have endured has been absolutely heartbreaking. And yet, I've been profoundly proud of how they've carried themselves with the same grace and composure that they showed during the entirety of this trial. As a former law enforcement officer myself, I understand the responsibility that comes with carrying a firearm. Every individual who goes through Florida Basic Recruit Training is taught that there's no room for complacency when it comes to weapon handling. The public places an unspoken but heightened trust in those who wear the badge, not only to protect the community, but also to keep the people closest to them safe. By all reasonable measures, Dale Boileau's presence in Paulina's life should have made her safer, not placed her in danger. His conduct violated that trust and directly caused her death, an outcome that was entirely preventable. I've also personally experienced the consequences of such negligence firsthand. While on Thanksgiving break for my own recruit academy class in 2009, I was the victim of a negligent discharge by someone I believed to be competent with firearms. Bullet shattered my right elbow, partially severed my ulnar nerve, and led to a 2-year recovery before I was able to return to training in 2011. That experience instilled in me a lifelong respect for how quickly a single careless act can change, or in Paulina's case, end a life. The result of failing to follow the most basic principle of firearm safety, something every recruit is taught, including Dale, is that the Wright family and all of us who love them will forever be dimmed by Paulina's loss. I've always believed that a guilty verdict belongs to the victim, but sentencing is for the living, for those left behind. I respectfully ask that the court consider the absolute maximum sentence available in light of the egregious negligence committed by Dale Boileau. It is the closest thing to being made whole that any of us who knew and loved Polina will ever feel again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Taddy, any questions?
No, sir.
You can be seated.
Your Honor, next state's gonna call Rebecca Baker to the stand.
Have you raise your right hand, ma'am? You swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
You can put your hand down. And tell me your name and how you spell it.
Rebecca, Rebecca, Baker, Baker.
Okay.
Your Honor, same thing, she has a statement prepared.
Go ahead and read it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Rebecca Baker. My maiden name is Rebecca Wright, and Polina Wright is my little sister. They say lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, but on September 20th, 2024, it struck me twice in a row. My phone rang early in the morning. My dad was calling. My dad never calls early in the morning, so I answered right away. He is sobbing uncontrollably, and immediately my heart is in my throat. He manages to choke out in between his cries, "She's dead, Polina is dead." I feel the first clap of lightning strike my body, and I scream, "No, no, no." In my dad's panic, he hangs up. I call him right back and I yell, "What happened, Dad? What happened?" He answers, "All we know is that she died of a gunshot wound," and clap, the lightning strikes me again. An immediate knowing. I knew that you, Leslie Boileau, killed my sister. My sister Polina was kind, smart, funny, and witty. Even when she was being mean to me, we were sisters after all, she still made me laugh. Polina's humor was the unexpected type. You never knew how or when she would make the funniest comment that made you laugh until your ribs hurt. Polina also gave the best head scratches, the warmest hugs, the coziest couch snuggles. She loved her family so dearly. I miss her like crazy. Polina became an aunt in January 2024. Her niece was born to her twin sister, Julia, and then 12 hours later, on the very same day, her nephew, my son, was born. Paulina's joke is, "My nephew is just such a gentleman." He said, "Ladies first." Polina loved children, and she loved her niece and nephew most of all. I am devastated that they will only know her from photos that we show them and the stories that we tell them. They will never see her face light up the room with that mischievous little dimply grin. They will never taste her famous green bean casserole. They will never hear her infectious laugh. Grief changes everything. I did not only lose my sister that horrible day, I lost a version of my family that I will never get back. I lost a version of myself. How did I know that it was Dale who killed Polina? There are a million tiny changes in Polina in the short years she knew Dale. She never spoke a word against him. She never told me he was hurting her. She never told me really anything at all about their relationship. But when I poked and prodded as sisters do, it always alarmed me at how little she would say. It wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. I had no evidence that Dale was coercively controlling her, emotionally manipulating her, or physically abusing her. But what I did have was a weird sinking suspicion, an intuition that my sister was in danger. After she was killed, I found the evidence. Her journals, her friends who saw the strange bruises. It will always haunt me that I never had the opportunity to help her escape.
Ms. Baker, I do want to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate for me as a judge to consider allegations of criminal conduct that the person has not been charged with and convicted of at sentencing. I understand that you're reading from a prepared statement, but because I can't consider them, it would also be inappropriate for me to hear them. If you're able to, as reading your statement, anybody else in the family who has a statement to read, not read those portions, so that I'm not put in a position where somebody could say that I have considered something inadmissible. That would be much appreciated.
Okay.
Continue.
2 days before Polina was killed, we chatted on FaceTime for a long while. She made silly faces at my son. She told me about how excited she was for her future. We planned to have her come and visit me where I live in the state of Maryland. We just had the best little chat. That call plays over and over and over in my head. Could I have said something to save her? My family and I will grieve for a lifetime. However, we do not grieve without hope. We grieve with the knowledge that Polina is in the arms of her Savior, Jesus Christ. Polina, I know I will be seeing you. It is a very powerless feeling to plead in front of this broken court system for a tiny shred of justice. Nothing will bring Polina back. Nothing. I only hope that a maximum sentence will stop Leslie from destroying another family. Please, Judge McCourt, I implore you. This man deserves a maximum sentence for killing Polina. Justice demands it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Taddy, any questions?
No questions.
Your Honor, next state's gonna call Gregory Wright to the stand.
You said Gregory Wright? All right, good morning, sir. Have you raised your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Swear affirm any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your
All
Honor.
right, you can put your hand down, sir. Tell me your name and how you spell it.
Gregory Wright, GrigoryWright.
What would you like to tell me, sir? What would you like to tell me?
My name is Gregory Wright, and Polina was my sister. Me, Polina, and Julia were all born in Russia, and we got adopted in 2004. For the first 5 years of their life, their safety was on me. We didn't have a good father figure around, so I was in charge of keeping them safe. And I did until we got to America, and then it was on my father. And he did great for 13 years. And then the responsibility shifted to Mr. Boileau, and he was not able to do that. I saw Julia get married. I saw her become a mother. It breaks my heart that I won't get to see the same for Polina. I have a daughter, 8 years old. Polina won't get to see her grow up, graduate high school, any of that. For the rest of my life, I will have to console my father and my mother, and my brother and my 3 sisters. Words do no justice in describing how much I miss her. And how much this hurt me. That is all, Your Honor.
Mr. Taddy, any questions?
No, sir.
Y'all mind if I ask a question or two?
I do not.
You're her older brother?
Yes, sir.
How old are you?
I am 29 years old.
What's her birthday?
Her birthday is December 31st, 1998.
When did she come to the United States? When did you all come to the United States?
November 16th, 2004.
All right, very good. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, next state would call Julia Dawson to the stand.
Now, do you raise your right hand? You swear affirm any testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. All
Yes, sir.
right, you can put your hand down. Tell me your name and how you spell it.
Julia, Julia, Dawson, Dawson.
What would you like to tell me?
My name is Julia Dawson. I am Paulina's twin sister. Growing up, our grandpa called Polina Dimples, and I Giggles. We were Dimple and Giggles. Since Dimples has gone, my Giggles seem to have disappeared. Rarely are they heard much these days. Losing my twin sister in such a horrendous act has devastated many, but destroyed me. There are no words I could ever say to describe the pain and heartbreak I am feeling. I have lived 25 years being a twin to Polina. Polina and I had a bond no one could or would ever understand. God blessed me with one twin. There is no going to find another. Polina is all I've known my whole life. The bond formed between us even before birth is a lifelong connection. And in a blink of an eye, that was all taken away from me. Half of me has died. I desperately pray I can feel whole again, but knowing Polina is no longer here or side with me leaves me numb. Polina was my biggest cheerleader. She stood next to me on my wedding day, held my hand during the birth of my daughter, pushed me to do hard things, encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone, showed up for me, listened to me, cried with me, laughed with me. I could keep going. I will no longer get to make any memories with her. I just cling on to the 25 years God blessed me with having her by my side. She was my best friend. No morning as I wake or lay my head down to rest go without tears, anger, pain, and Polina on my mind. I'm dreading the day I have to tell my daughter and future kids the horror story of what happened to their Aunt Polly. All I have left is photos and memories to share. My daughter will never get to experience the love her Aunt Polly would have continued to give her. She was the best aunt. Anytime she saw her niece and nephew, her smile would light up the whole room. Polina only got 8 months with her babies before she was taken. The good days are stolen from me because I remember Polina isn't here to celebrate and do life with me. The bad days are only worse because I'm constantly reminded of the evil way she was taken for no reason. I am now left to celebrate birthdays on my own. I am left to blow out Polina's side of the candles on our birthday cake. A day that's supposed to be filled with life and celebration is now a day I mourn and wish to never celebrate again. My life is now filled with fear, anger, anxiety, sleepless nights, nightmares, endless tears, and heartbreak that will never go away. Through my tears, pain, and sorrow, Jesus is better. I do not know why this happened to Polina. I do not know why this happened to both families. But I do know we have a faithful, all-knowing, and loving Father. Because of Jesus' blood, Polina is in eternal glory now, where we all yearn to be. That is all I have left to cling on to. I will see her beautiful face again, and what a celebration that will be. My life will live on, but it will never be the same again. The emotional wounds caused will never heal. I will continue to carry Polina's memory on.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions?
No, sir.
You can be seated, ma'am.
State has no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Mr. Caddy, do you have any witnesses you wish to call?
Yes, sir. Juan Garan. David Boileau.
Have you raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm any testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Tell me your name and how you spell it.
David Boileau, David Boileau.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Caddy?
He has a letter that was submitted with the other letters You're welcome to read that, or if you want to add to it, you can do that now.
I have read it.
You have ready?
I have read it, but if you want to read it, you can. If there's anything you want to say, you can.
If you've already read it, sir, then I'll just add to it. My condolences to the Wright family. It's a terrible tragedy that happened. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
And I would like to take some brief testimony from Mr. Boileau.
Okay. All right. Let me have you raise your right hand, sir. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You put your hand down.
Would you state your full name, please?
Leslie Boileau Jr.
All right. Mr. Boileau, at the time of your arrest, you were employed as a Marion County deputy, is that correct?
Correct.
How long had you worked for the sheriff's office?
8 years.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
No.
Have you ever been arrested for a crime?
No.
Is there anything else, I mean, you testified at the trial, is there anything else that you would like to say today?
Yeah. I've gone over and over in my head about how blind I could have been to allow this situation to unfold. Comes down to me being complacent, prideful, arrogant, and overconfident. And I know I can't make up for what happened that night, but I'm going to do my best to make a difference. And I'm truly sorry to both families.
That's all.
State, did you all have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Was there any other evidence you wanted to present?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's take about a 10-minute recess. We'll come back at about a quarter of.
Yes, Your Honor.
seated.
Mr. Boileau, is there anything you want to say before I impose sentence? Okay. All right, before I impose sentence, I want to make clear for the record what evidence I am not considering. I am specifically declining to consider the portion of any statement written or delivered in court this morning that refers to uncharged acts committed by Mr. Boileau. To the extent that I am considering unsworn victim impact statements, I will say this. They simply echo that Ms. Wright's death left a void in many lives and caused immeasurable sadness, both of which were testified to here today. All right, Mr. Boileau, the maximum sentence you could receive for this offense is 30 years of imprisonment. The Criminal Punishment Code would have me sentence you to a term of imprisonment of at least 12.125 years. You have asked me to consider imposing a downward departure sentence of less than that. I do find that the greater weight of the evidence has established that this was an isolated incident committed in an unsophisticated manner for which you have shown remorse. As such, a sentence of less than 12.125 years could be lawfully imposed. But simply because a downward departure sentence can be imposed does not mean that it must be imposed. The question before me today then is, should I depart? To make this decision, I must weigh the totality of the circumstances of this case, including the aggravating and mitigating factors. To that end, I have thought about the evidence presented and reflected on what justice requires here today. On the one hand, you were a law enforcement officer. You swore an oath to serve as a law enforcement officer, a solemn promise to protect others, even at the risk of your own life. And for 8 years, you did that. And by all measures, you did that well and honorably. You know what it's like to put on a bulletproof vest each morning, knowing that your day may bring you face to face with mortal danger at the hands of a person who may seek to use a firearm to end your life. Most people don't know what that's like. Your service will be recognized today as a mitigating factor, as will your record of good character and the good that you did in this community until September 19th of 2024. But one cannot simply ignore the other side of that coin. You, more than most, understood the power of a firearm and the responsibility that comes with holding one. Putting on your vest every day was also a reminder that firearms are deadly weapons capable of ending life. You were trained. I've looked through your training records. They were admitted into evidence during the trial. You were highly trained how to handle firearms safely, to protect innocent life, and to avoid taking it. Your training records speak for themselves. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. You knew all of that, and you knew to never point your weapon at anything you did not intend to shoot. But, despite all of that, on September 19th, 2024, you pointed a rifle at Ms. Wright, pulled the trigger, shot her between the eyes, and killed her. Afterward, you had what appeared to be the audacity to cast blame upon her because she asked you to teach her how to use firearms. She was innocent. It never should have happened. I could say that it could have been prevented, but that would imply it was simply an accident. It was more than that. It was senseless, reckless, and criminal. There will be no winners in the courtroom today. You have brought loss to everybody here, and none of their lives will ever be the same. Polina Wright lost her life in the promise of all that it could have been. Her family very clearly lost a lifetime of memories they will never get to make. And even your family, they have to live with having you in their lives in the way that they deserve. And your actions and your choices are to blame for all of that. Mr. Boileau, you are going to lose your freedom today. The totality of the circumstances in this case do not warrant a downward departure sentence, and I will not exercise my discretion to impose one. I will, however, try to achieve some measure of justice here, with an understanding that true justice would be restoring what was lost, something that is far above what I have the power to do. Every life has worth beyond measure, and every act has a consequence. Your act of taking Ms. Wright's life in the Judge. The blue man flashed. You should be good. Madam Clerk, if you would Mind calling ECR? Every life has worth beyond measure, and every act has a consequence. Your act of taking Ms. Wright's life in the manner you did is no exception. It is a crime, and for it you will be punished. Accordingly, as to the offense of manslaughter with a firearm, you will be adjudicated guilty. You will be sentenced to 25 years, 8 months, and 20 days in the Department of Corrections. You will receive credit for 47 days served. I've calculated that as follows. You were arrested on September 20th, 2024, and posted bond on September 21st, 2024. That is 2 days of credit. You were remanded into custody following the trial October 1st, 2025, and remained in custody through today. That's 31 days in October, 14 thus far in November, for a total of 45 days. It's a total of 47. You'll pay a fine, $1,000, any mandatory court costs and surcharges, and $100 in the cost of prosecution to the Office of the State Attorney. You have 30 days if you'd like to file a notice of appeal, and if you cannot afford to hire an attorney to represent you on appeal and qualify, I am happy to appoint the Office of the Public Defender to represent you on appeal. That'll be the sentence of the court. Would you like me to consider Mr. Taddy appointing the Office of the Public Defender for appeal?
Not at this time.
Okay, very good. Court will be adjourned.
go back to Sumter County initially. All his belongings are there. They didn't book him out of their facility, so I would request that he be sent back to Sumter at this point. And then I wanted to ask the court if you were willing to include in the sentencing documents that the court would not have an objection to Mr. Boileau being transferred out of the state of Florida in the Department of Corrections Interstate Compact System. I've already spoken with the coordinator of that program. It sounded to me like they would attempt to do that themselves, even without a recommendation from the court, but my hope is that would help. The state has been gracious enough. The gentleman asked or suggested that if he got a letter from the state, it would facilitate the process. Mr. O'Neill is drafting a letter indicating that the state has no objection to the transfer.
Does he have family out of state?
No, but I think the family will go where he goes, at least part of them.
Okay.
The problem is the department, while the jail may be able to identify and segregate Mr. Boileau from persons that he's responsible for putting in the jail, the Department of Corrections is going to have no way to accurately determine who in any particular facility Mr. Boileau may have arrested and participated in putting in prison.
No, I understand.
So,
If you don't mind, file a motion, and I'll consider it. I would enter a subsequent written order if I
all right,
if I
that's
am
fine.
inclined to. I just
will
want to,
do that.
I want to consider that. Okay, my understanding is that what delays delivery of a prisoner to the Department of Corrections is the commitment packet. So, my intent is to not burden the sheriff of Sumter County, who has Mr. Boileau housed for any longer than we need to. And I know we have a process in place here for commitment packets getting delivered to the Marion County Jail, but if it has to be delivered to Sumter County, just the added logistics to it, I would like to get him on his way as quickly as possible. I don't want there to be some inordinate delay at this point. Madam Clerk, how long do you think it'll take to get the commitment packet prepared? Okay. All right, and that'll go to the Marion County Jail? You can send to Sumter? Okay. All right, so with that said, Mr. Boileau will be transported back to Sumter County first, and then from
I
there.
would not expect the Sumter County Sheriff to have an objection to being involved in his transfer to.
No, I don't expect it to, but if we could simplify that and cut out an additional stop, it would make sense to me. But if he's got his things there and property that he would be bringing to the department with him, I don't know what it would be. Legal paperwork, I assume, for starters, but that's reasonable.
All the property that I was arrested with originally is there, and all.
Okay, they transferred all.
Yeah, all of my property's down there, like my clothes that I was taken into custody here.
Yes, sir.
During the trial is all down there with, like my whites and everything I have.
Okay.
down there.
That's
Left
reasonable. I
down
mean,
there.
you ought to have those things with you when you go to the department, so. All right, very well.
But I will draft the motion.
Yes, sir. I'll definitely give it some consideration, so. And state, just so I don't have to wait for any type of response or objection, the state has no objection to him being transferred to a prison in a different state.
No, Your Honor, and as Mr. Taddy said, I did inform him, I was actually drafting the letter when I was getting back to the office, just on state attorney letterhead saying we had no objection. I was gonna get the contact information for the person, that way I could email a copy to them, and I'll obviously attach Mr. Taddy as well, so he knows that they receive it, and I have no objection to the court entering an order or recommendation either.
Okay. And, did you want me to make any type of recommendation to the department regarding housing in the interim, in the event, or
Yes, sir.
housing in the
I
event
would.
that he is not transferred to a different state? Does he have a preference to be near family, or?
Not here in the state of Florida.
Yeah, not within the state, no preference. So,
Okay, all right,
I'll be PC.
all right, very well. Okay, all right. Good luck, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
Madam Clerk, you gonna have paperwork for me to sign? All right, I'll just stay here until I sign it.